My name is Rena Calder. I am 28, and until last night, I believed I was safe. I grew up in small-town Kentucky, learned to stretch a dollar, learned to keep records, and married young because love felt like a warm front porch. Now I live in Indianapolis, and I thought I knew the man I share my mortgage and mornings with. The hook is simple and cruel. My husband forgot to hang up the phone. It was close to midnight in Columbus, Ohio, where he was covering a late shift. I called to ask if he ate, if he needed me to keep the porch light on. We traded soft words about leftovers and the kids' homework folder on the counter. He sounded tired, kind. "All right, talk to you later," he said, and I heard the tiny click. I set my phone down. The line did not die. What came next felt like the air left the room. I heard his voice again, lower and careful. Another voice answered, a woman's voice with a bright, sharp laugh. He was not talking about inventory or schedules. He was talking about me as if I were a problem to solve. He named a bank I did not know, mentioned a deed I had never signed, and said my name in a way that made it sound like a file to be closed. I stood in the kitchen with the light over the sink humming. The fridge motor kicked on. My breath got thin. I pressed the phone back to my ear and did not move. He spoke about timing. He said, "Once the transfer clears, the rest is clean." The woman said, "She will not see it coming." Papers rustled. They joked about a new start. I wanted to scream. I did not. I listened. I counted the seconds between their words, like counting steps on a cliff. I thought about our wedding photo in the hallway, his hand on my shoulder, the way I leaned into him, as if he were a wall that could not fall. I thought about passwords we shared and bills I paid on my lunch break. I thought about my pension statement I had not seen in months. Minutes passed. He said a new name for himself, like he was trying on a shirt. He said the word settlement, as if it were a favor. He called me she, not Rena. He called me she like a stranger. The woman laughed again, softer this time. My whole body went numb. It was not just cheating. It was a racing. I hung up. I did not cry. I wrapped my arms around my ribs and stood there while the clock over the stove ticked. I walked to the hallway and touched the photo glass. My face in the picture looked young and sure. I did not recognize her. The house felt new and also suddenly borrowed, like a hotel room where the desk drawer holds a Bible and a missing page. I went back to the table and opened my notes app. I typed what I heard, word for word, time for time. I saved the file. I made a second copy with a different name. I emailed both to myself. I whispered his words to test my memory. The words were knives that did not bleed me, only cut me free from sleep. When the garage door finally rattled hours later, I stayed still in our bed and watched shadow lines move across the ceiling. He came in smelling like cold air and coffee. He kissed my forehead and said, "Long night." I said nothing. He slept beside me with slow, even breaths. I stared at the dark and counted them. At sunrise, I brewed coffee and waited. He came to the kitchen smiling, polished, the man I thought I knew. He asked about the kids' lunches and my meeting later. He hugged me from behind like he always did. The hug felt like a costume. I held the mug with both hands so I would not shake it. I decided one thing. I would not yell. I would not warn him. If he was preparing to erase me on paper, then I would answer on paper. I would become quiet and exact. I would build a record that held when the room started to tilt. He left for work, and the house went still again. I opened the hall closet and pulled down our stack of files. Something had been moved. A folder was missing. I checked the safe box where we keep our passports. Inside lay a brass key I didn't recognize, tagged with an Ohio address. My hands went cold. If the box was empty, what else was moved? I packed lunches with steady hands and a storm behind my eyes. I spoke in a voice that sounded like mine and felt borrowed. He left in his pressed shirt, kissed my head, and said he would be late again. I nodded like a person in a play. When the door shut, the silence held me like a dress I could not unzip. I started simple. I took photos of drawers and shelves before I touched anything, in case something vanished later. I lined the pictures on my phone like tiles. Then I opened the filing box and set folders on the table: taxes, mortgage, health, pension. My name sat on the tabs in my own handwriting. It felt like proof. The first gap was thin as a paper cut. A bank envelope from spring was missing its statement. Another envelope carried a faint indent where a card had been removed. I made a list. I wrote dates. I called the bank for a login reset. The voice said a request had been made yesterday and access would be mailed to the address on file. It was hours, yet I felt like a visitor to my own life. I texted my cousin Leah in Chicago. Call when free. Need eyes. Leah is a paralegal who trusts documents more than stories. She FaceTimed me on her break, hair in a bun, coffee in hand. I told her about the call, kept my tone flat. She listened, then asked for photos of anything that seemed wrong. We made a plan in short lines. Backup files. Search for changes on the shared cloud. Check email filters and trash. Scan signatures. Request full account histories by mail. Leah said, "Calm is a tool." I wrote it on a sticky note and stuck it to the lamp. In his desk, I found a folded receipt from a bank in Kentucky I didn't recognize. The amount was large enough to sting. I took a photo and slid it back. In the hall closet, behind a winter coat, I found a manila envelope with my name misspelled, and inside, a copy of a deed with a signature that looked like mine if my hand had been trembling. I laid my driver's license beside the signature and traced the R and the loop in the N. They were close and wrong. Leah told me to breathe and date every discovery. Keep originals where they are, collect images and notes. See without tipping the room. Back at the table, I made a timeline. Last year's raise. The refinance pitch he pushed. The lost pension letter. The business trip he extended. I put their dates against the receipt and the missing statement. Lines started to line up. I drew arrows and wrote questions like a student cramming before an exam. At 3, Leah sent a screenshot from a public record search. My name appeared as a signer on a property transfer filed in Marion County. The date matched the week I was in Kentucky for my aunt's surgery. I pulled my calendar. I had photos from that hospital room. The math was simple and hard. I walked the house for tells. A drawer left a bit open. Dust lines where something used to sit. The weight of a box lighter by a pound. I found a small metal key taped under his desk, same shape as the one from the safe box, stamped with a different number. I put it back. My phone buzzed. Leah, we need an attorney who understands this pattern. I know someone in Louisville. Quiet, fast, serious. I stared at the screen and thought about how a day can split in half. I saved my notes to 3 places. I made tea I did not drink. The house clicked as it cooled. I looked at the brass key and wondered what door it owned. Leah asked for screenshots of the email rule and the folder path. I sent them, then opened the folder with a thumb that would not stop trembling. Dozens of unread pension notices filled the screen. Subject lines matched months when I had asked, "Did anything come for me?" He must have smiled and said, "No," while a rule hid the truth 2 clicks away. I downloaded every message, saved them to a fresh drive, and printed the list view with dates and times. Leah texted, "Good. See if any opened from his device." I checked metadata. Several showed a different IP address. The pin landed in Columbus. Rage flared and cooled into focus. I called the pension administrator and asked for full account history by mail to my attention. The rep asked me to verify my last login. "I've never logged in," I said. She paused. A digital profile had been created last year. She could not say more without a formal request. I wrote her first name, the time, and the call reference number. Leah sent a contact. Cara Mullen, Louisville. She's surgical, Leah wrote. Say little. Send docs. Ask about a freeze. I called Cara. Tell me only what you can prove, she said. I described the call, the deed copy with the shaking signature, the hidden email rule, the Kentucky receipt, the property transfer filed while I was in Kentucky. I sent my photos and a timeline. Good work, she said. Quiet matters. I'm filing for a temporary restraining order on any transfers tied to you and marital assets. We'll request a forensic review of signatures and device logs. We'll lock the pension until ownership and access are clear. I'll need permission to pull records in Ohio and Indiana and to approach the Kentucky bank through counsel. I agreed. She warned me, when pressure hits, he will call you crazy or cold. Do not enter the loud room. Let paper talk. I wrote it next to Leah's note. Calm as a tool. Let paper talk. While Kara worked, I moved. I opened a new email and shared the drive only with Leah and Kara. I enabled two-factor on everything. I changed the front door code. I placed the kids' birth certificates in my tote and slid the tote under a blanket in the trunk. I told myself I was organizing. He texted at 4, a coffee cup, a name written on the lid that was not his. Kara filed the motion before close. She told me to expect service within 48 hours and to build a grab box. IDs, marriage license, tax returns, mortgage, insurance, birth certificates, pension notices, pay stubs, credit reports, a list of recurring debits. I built the box on the dining table, page by page. At dusk, I drove to a strip mall, made copies of the copies, paid cash, and drove home. Inside, I cooked, cleaned, and kept my face calm. When he walked in, he kissed my cheek. Smells amazing, he said. We traded normal talk. He reached for my hand across the table and asked about the science fair. My hand stayed in my lap. After dishes, I said I was tired and went to bed with a book. I did not read. I listened for a shower. When water hit tile, I took his wallet from the dresser and opened it on the closet floor. A folded card with the Kentucky Bank logo lay inside. On the back, in tiny block handwriting, a string of numbers, a date, and a name I had never seen tied to him before. I snapped a photo and slid it back. Kara texted. Judge signed the temporary freeze. Service in the morning. I exhaled. Then I thought of the brass key with the Ohio tag. I taped it into a small bag, labeled it, and added it to the box. I could not sleep. I scrolled photos from last year. There I was in a Kentucky hospital room holding my aunt's hand. The same week the county showed my forged signature. Near midnight, he opened the bedroom door and asked if I was awake. I closed my eyes. He stood there long enough to make the room feel crowded. Then he left. At sunrise, a car door slammed outside. A process server stepped onto our porch with a manila envelope and a calm face. My phone buzzed again with a new text from Leah. Before you open, check one more thing, the shared cloud trash. I opened the door, confirmed my name, took the envelope, and the process server left. The house felt different, as if the walls recognized a new rule. I texted, served. Kara replied, good. Do not engage. Today is about control, not answers. He came down tying his tie. See my cufflinks? He asked. I said no. His phone lit up. He read the notice and tried to keep his face blank. What is this? He said. A court order, I said. He called me dramatic, misunderstanding, promised we would talk tonight. He left faster than usual. I went straight to the shared cloud trash. Buried under travel photos sat a deleted draft of a settlement letter. The tone was smooth, promising I would be taken care of if I signed quickly. My name was misspelled again. I restored the file and sent it to Kara. Leah called to check my pulse. Eat salt, she said. Shoes on even inside. Keep moving. I obeyed, then opened the order. It restrained transfers, withdrawals, and changes to accounts or property pending review. A hearing date sat on the page. Kara sent next steps. Collect, label, log, avoid argument. I walked the house and noted calls he made, times he left rooms, what he took. At noon, a real estate lawyer emailed both of us about a planned conveyance, to be finalized Friday. The timestamp was after service. I forwarded it to Kara. Good, she wrote. Shows intent. I'll handle. To steady myself, I built a binder. Bank, pension, property, communications. I printed the email rule, the hidden folder contents, the receipt, the deed copy, the public record, the new lawyer email. I slid the brass key into a clear sleeve at the front. Unknown key, Ohio tag. I arranged rides for the kids without telling them anything heavy. I packed an overnight bag for them and a small bag for me, tucked both in the trunk under my tote, and filled the gas tank. He called 3 times in 10 minutes. I didn't answer. Text followed. We need to talk. You're making a mistake. Call me now, and then, I love you. The words looked like a password typed wrong. I screenshotted and stayed quiet. Leah asked if I had a safe place. I named my friend Keely's. Leah said, share your live location for 24 hours. I did. When I came back from the car, a desk drawer sat open by a hair. On the floor was a red striped flash drive tucked against the back panel. I photographed it before touching, slid it into an envelope, labeled it, and sent Kara the picture. Do not insert, she replied. Bring it to me. Chain of custody. At 6 his car pulled in. We ate early with the kids. He was pleasant, all weather and traffic, until he said, we both want simple. This freeze can go away if we stay reasonable. I stirred soup. I'll meet you at the hearing, I said. His jaw tightened, then smoothed. After the kids went to their rooms, he reached for my wrist, light but testing. I stepped back. He smiled too fast. Inventory night tomorrow. Don't wait up. He was almost out the door when he turned, as if to add a last word, then thought better of it. The door shut. The house released a breath. I locked up and sat at the table with the binder open. The envelope with the flash drive lay by my elbow like a small red eye. I walked room to room, testing windows. Added an index card. Daily log, times left, notes right. Writing slowed my pulse. I printed the planned conveyance, email, and circled the time. I wrote in the margin, pattern, not mistake. I sketched tomorrow like a map. Early drop-off. Drive to Louisville with a sealed flash drive. Meet Kara. Hand off the binder. Speak only what I can prove. Practice? I don't know, and please see the document. Outside, a car door thumped. A dog barked twice. In the kitchen, I set 2 mugs on counter, placed the brass key on one saucer, and studied the Ohio address. I thought about going there alone. I didn't. Paper first, not impulse. Quiet room, not loud room. My phone lit with a new message from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line said, about the Ohio key. The preview line showed 3 words that made my scalp prickle. We should talk. The highway to Louisville pulled straight like a gray ribbon. I kept the radio low and steadied myself with simple phrases. Paper first. Quiet room. Rena. Memory tugged. Our first year in Kentucky returned in flashes. A cedar-smelling rental, chipped mugs, a second-hand couch, his hand on my back, his promise that I didn't need to worry about money because he had a system. I remembered handing him the bills like a heavy box. Kara's office was brick and plain, blinds half drawn. She met me with a firm handshake. Leah joined by video. I set the flash drive and binder on the table. Kara spoke without drama. We would keep to proof. Dates, signatures, IP logs, filings, and the call I overheard recorded in notes with timestamps. Start an index, she said. Judges follow threads. She logged the flash drive, sealed and timed, and noted the brass keys Ohio tag. We won't chase that address yet, she said. If it ties to a unit or box, we request the right way. Leah's voice came. Rena is logging everything, not taking bait. Kara nodded. That's how people win, she said. Boring on paper while the other side performs. We triangulated the refinance push, the extended trip, the missing pension letter, the property transfer during my Kentucky visit. Simple story, Kara said, circling dates. She requested early digital discovery, device access logs, email filter changes, cloud activity. I signed authorizations and promised to back up my phone and delete nothing. Silence is powerful, she said, but deletions look like noise. What hurts most? She asked. I told her. Hearing my name used like a problem to solve. Being written out with a line and a stamp. That's why we build, she said. So the paper cannot lie. I left with a checklist and a steadier spine. I called Keely and lined up her couch if needed, then drove home, picked up the kids, and let a silly song settle the car. At the mailbox, a bank envelope addressed to him waited. I photographed it and put it back. On my laptop, a new voicemail waited with no transcript. I pressed play. A calm male voice. Courtesy call regarding the transfer slated for Friday. We understand there's been an unexpected order. We need direction. If Miss Calder is present, we recommend she be included in the revised documents to avoid delay. Click. No callback number. I sent the audio to Kara and Leah. Do not respond, Kara wrote. This helps. Shows awareness. I added it to the index. He came home late, smelling of grease and mint. He studied me. We can keep this clean, he said. Sign, and this will be easy. I looked at his collar. See you at the hearing, I said. He exhaled hard. You have no idea what you're doing. I let the words pass and washed dishes twice. When the house quieted, I checked the shared email and cloud trash. A draft letter sat there, time-stamped an hour earlier, on a law firm template and signed, addressed to me by my maiden name. It offered generous consideration for swift cooperation and claimed I had no present interest in the subject property. I took photos, restored the draft so it would be visible, and logged the find. I remembered the first time he brought me to Columbus for a weekend, pointing at glass towers and saying, "One day we'll own a floor." I believed him because he was holding my hand. We split a burger to save money and laughed. He learned my signature watching me sign rent checks. Back then it felt like closeness. Now it felt like rehearsal. I tucked the kids in and listened to them argue about whose turn it was to pick tomorrow's playlist. Their ordinary wants steadied me. In the kitchen, I set out clothes, then drew a box around the hearing date in my binder and wrote, "Stay narrow, speak slow, ask to see the document." I practiced in a whisper. "I don't recall." "Please see the document." "That is my signature." "That is not." Leah texted, "Proud of you. Sleep if you can." On at 8. I traced the brass key's stamp numbers and wondered how long it had waited in the safe box, a quiet clue in plain sight. I put it back and counted 10 breaths. The house clicked as it cooled. When I opened my eyes, the hallway felt narrower, and I knew he was there before he spoke. Boards clicked behind me. His voice said my name in a quiet, flat tone I had never heard in our house. He was close enough for me to feel the air move. He said, "We should talk about Ohio." I will never forget the moment the money arrived. The lawyer's voice was steady as he read out the numbers, but the room spun around me. Nearly $300 million transferred into Margaret's account, like the world had just crowned her queen. She lifted her glass of champagne with a smile, so wide it felt carved into her face. My husband clapped her on the back like he had just won a lottery. I stood in the corner, invisible, my hands pressed against the hem of my sweater. Neighbors streamed in later that evening, curious about the new fortune. The mansion was alive with laughter, but none of it reached me. I was handed empty platitudes and fake smiles while Margaret told anyone who would listen how she had fought her whole life for this blessing. She spoke like I didn't exist. When I reached for a slice of cake from the kitchen counter, she swatted my hand away like a child. As the night wound down, she came to me with cold eyes. "You've served your purpose," she said. I didn't understand at first. Then she pointed to my suitcase at the bottom of the stairs. She had packed it herself, tossing in clothes like I was a stranger renting a room. Daniel stood beside her, silent. I begged him to say something, anything, but he only looked away. My little boy clung to my side, his eyes wide with confusion. Margaret's voice sliced through the air again. "Take her to a motel. She doesn't belong here anymore." The door slammed behind me. Rain poured down like the sky itself was laughing at me. As the cab drove away from the glowing mansion, I realized I was no longer just a wife or a daughter-in-law. I was discarded, and the only thing keeping me tethered to sanity was the folder buried deep in my suitcase. The world believed Margaret was untouchable, but I had proof that could shatter her crown. The motel walls were thin, and through them I heard the arguments of strangers and the faint hum of a vending machine outside. My son lay curled up beside me on the stiff mattress, his small breaths reminding me of the weight I carried. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't. My tears had dried up somewhere between the mansion's driveway and the cab's flickering meter. I sat awake staring at the folder I had tucked beneath the bed. It felt heavier now, like it carried more than paper. It carried power. Yet part of me hesitated. Could I really use it? What if it backfired? The TV kept replaying the same breaking news headline. Fraud investigation launched in Fort Worth. Assets frozen. The name scrolled across the bottom of the screen again and again. Margaret's name. My chest tightened. The powerful widow was suddenly cornered. I whispered to myself, she's going to come. And just like that, I felt both dread and anticipation. At 3 a.m, my phone lit up on the nightstand. The caller ID was blocked. I let it ring, my hand trembling. Minutes later, it rang again. And again. I finally picked it up, pressing it to my ear in silence. Her voice cracked through the line. Kara, we need to talk. By sunrise, I heard a knock at the motel door. My stomach twisted as I opened it. Margaret stood there, dressed in yesterday's clothes, her makeup smeared from tears. The woman who had thrown me into the rain less than a day ago now looked small, desperate, broken. I need your help, she whispered, her voice trembling. I didn't move. I let her words hang in the air, soaking in the irony. She had treated me like a servant, a nuisance, and now she was at my door. Behind me, my son stirred awake, rubbing his eyes. Margaret caught sight of him and pressed a hand to her chest, like the guilt had finally hit her. She stepped inside uninvited, pacing the floor. They froze everything, every account, every asset. They say I forged documents. They're going to take it all away. She turned to me, her face streaked with panic. But you still have the papers, don't you? I sat on the edge of the bed, crossing my arms. You mean the ones you said I had no right to touch? Her knees buckled as she sat across from me. Please. I can't survive this without you. For the first time, I felt taller than her. Stronger. Her wealth, her mansion, her arrogance, they all meant nothing now.
She needed me.
But I wasn't ready to hand her the folder. Not yet. She begged, her voice growing hoarse. But I didn't move. I let her desperation settle in the room like smoke. For once, I wasn't the weak one.
She was.
You think you can just erase me? I said softly, staring straight into her eyes. You thought money made you untouchable. She flinched, pressing her hands together like she was praying. I was wrong.
I see that now.
Just give me the documents and I'll make sure you and your son are taken care of. Her promise meant nothing. I had heard it all before. Empty words coded in manipulation. Instead, I reached for my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in years. It belonged to a paralegal I once helped when she was in trouble. Her name was Marla, and she owed me a favor. When she picked up, I told her everything: the documents, the altered forms, the frozen assets. Marla's voice was steady. Don't hand her anything yet. Bring the papers to me. I'll know what to do. Margaret's face drained of color as she realized I wasn't bending. You'll ruin me, she hissed. I leaned closer, my voice calm.
No.
You ruined yourself. The next morning, Kara called with news. The judge approved the temporary freeze. He cannot touch the pension, the bank accounts, or the property without permission now, she said. Relief poured over me like cool water. For the first time in weeks, I felt the ground hold steady. But victory came with a warning. Expect pushback, Kara said. He will know the walls are closing. Don't argue. Don't explain. Let us handle the noise. I nodded, gripping the phone like it was a rope keeping me from falling. When he was served, I watched from the kitchen window. The officer handed him the envelope. His jaw tightened. He came inside, pacing like a man cornered. What have you done? He demanded. I stayed seated, hands folded. Protecting myself, I said. His voice rose. He called me ungrateful, paranoid, dramatic. Then he lowered it again, a sudden swing back to charm. We can still fix this. I said nothing. My silence seemed to enrage him more than words. He stormed upstairs, slammed a door, and stayed there for an hour. I sat at the table, heart thudding, writing down every word. That evening he acted like nothing had happened. He asked about the kids' schoolwork, complimented my cooking, even joked about the weather. The whiplash was dizzying. To anyone watching, we were a normal family. But under the table, my legs trembled. I checked the binder again, flipping through pages of proof. Every file felt like a lifeline. I thought about how easy it would have been to doubt myself if I hadn't kept records. His charm was powerful enough to convince neighbors, friends, maybe even a judge. But paper didn't lie. The next day, Kara filed motions to secure more accounts. Leah called to say the forged deed had been flagged by the county recorder's office. They'll have to investigate, she said. It was the first real crack in his wall. I drove the kids to school, then parked and sat in the car, staring at the steering wheel. I wanted to cry, but tears felt too easy. Instead, I clenched the leather until my fingers ached. I whispered, "I am not erased." That night, as I folded laundry, my phone buzzed with an email alert. The subject line read, "Urgent response required. Pension access." It was sent to both of us. The body said the freeze had been applied, pending verification. He read it over my shoulder. His face drained of color. For the first time, he looked afraid. He turned to me, voice shaking with anger. "You don't know what you've started." Then he left the room. I sat there, staring at the email, and realized I had started something he couldn't stop. Hours later, I heard him on the phone again, this time louder. "She's trying to ruin me," he said. "We need another way." I pressed my ear to the wall, heart pounding. Papers shuffled. He said, "Tomorrow." I didn't sleep. I lay in the dark, eyes open, listening for every creak. When dawn came, I brewed coffee and packed lunches, moving like a machine. The kids laughed about cereal, unaware. I kissed their heads, drove them to school, and came home to find his car still in the driveway. He hadn't left for work. The house was too quiet. I stepped into the kitchen and saw it. A stack of documents spread across the table, bold letters at the top of one page. Settlement agreement. The word settlement glared at me from across the table. My chest tightened. I picked up the pages carefully, eyes scanning line by line. It was written as if I had agreed already, surrendering property, accounts, and even custody schedules. My signature was at the bottom, smooth and false. I felt the room spin. This wasn't just betrayal. It was erasure with legal polish. He wasn't hiding it anymore. He was staging a complete rewrite of our life. I texted Leah. "Found settlement draft. Forged again." She replied instantly. "Don't confront. Send all to Kara." I photographed every page, uploaded them, and slid the originals back into place. My hands shook, but my steps stayed steady. When he came downstairs, he smiled like nothing had happened. He asked if I wanted coffee. I shook my head. He poured himself a cup, sipped, and said, "We could end this peacefully. No need for court drama." His eyes glinted with practiced charm. I nodded, pretending to listen, but inside I burned. I thought of our neighbors who waved at him like he was the perfect husband. I thought of the church potluck where he told jokes and passed plates. Everyone saw a polished man. No one saw the drafts on the table. That evening, I stepped outside to clear my head. A neighbor approached, lowering her voice. "I saw your husband with a woman last week, at a retirement seminar downtown." My stomach dropped. The woman's laugh from the phone call came back sharp in my ears. I thanked the neighbor and walked back inside, heart pounding. The puzzle pieces were snapping into place. Forged papers, hidden accounts, and now a public appearance with her. He wasn't just planning a future without me. He was rehearsing it in public. That night, as I tucked the kids into bed, I heard him on the phone again. He whispered, "By Friday, she won't matter." Friday. The words stuck in my head like a countdown. I called Kara first thing in the morning. She answered on speaker with Leah already on the line. I told them about the settlement draft, the neighbor's warning, and his whispered threat. Kara's tone sharpened. "This is bigger now. We need a financial advisor to track the money trail." She connected me to a man named Victor, a quiet advisor out of Cincinnati. He spoke with the patience of someone who had seen too many lives dismantled by paperwork. I sent him the receipts, the drafts, the forged deeds. He's not just moving assets, Victor said. He's redirecting pensions, trying to claim future payments, and lining up real estate transfers. This is systematic. Hearing it confirmed made my stomach twist, but also strengthened me. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I was right. That afternoon, Victor emailed a report showing how my husband had tried to reroute my pension into a separate account with his name. He wanted control of your retirement, Victor explained. That's not just fraud. That's theft of your future. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the report. Rage surged, but so did resolve. I thought about the nights I stayed up balancing our budget, clipping coupons, stretching meals so we could save. He hadn't just betrayed me. He had tried to erase the labor of my life. That evening, Kara filed motions to expose the hidden accounts. Leah kept pressing me to document everything, no matter how small. I filled page after page with notes, each entry a piece of armor. When he came home, he acted normal again. He asked about the kids, the groceries, even joked about weekend plans. I smiled back, calm, steady. But inside, I was counting hours. Friday was coming. After dinner, he stepped outside to take a call. I pressed my ear to the door. She won't see the offshore move, he whispered. My chest tightened.
Offshore.
The word felt like a black hole, pulling everything down. I wrote it down, word for word, and circled it in red.
Offshore.
Proof of a darker plan. I sat on the couch, binder on my lap, staring at the word until it blurred. My phone buzzed. A new email arrived from Victor. The subject line said, "Tracing offshore accounts." The preview showed numbers that made my pulse stop. I walked into the courthouse with my binder tight to my chest, and my breath counted in fours. Kara met me at the steps with a nod that felt like a shield. Leah joined by video on Kara's tablet, hair pinned up, eyes bright. We didn't talk about feelings. We talked about order. Paper first. Quiet room. Ask to see the document. I repeated those words like a prayer I could hold in my mouth. Inside, the hall smelled like old wood and coffee. He stood with his lawyer, joking as if this was a parking ticket. He caught my eye and gave me that soft public smile that used to steady me. It slid off. I opened my binder to the index. Call notes with timestamps, the forged deed, the hidden email rule, the draft divorce, the generous settlement. Clean lines. No rage. Just proof. We were called. The judge was steady, gray hair pinned back, voice even.
Kara spoke in simple parts.
Your Honor, this is quiet erasure. We ask to protect assets while discovery proceeds. The evidence shows secret accounts, forged signatures, and concealment. We request the temporary restraints remain. We request a forensic review. She didn't raise her voice. The room listened. His lawyer smiled and told a story about misunderstandings. He called me anxious, said I was confused by tools, called the forgeries bad scans, the email rule automation. He asked to lift the freeze so normal life could resume. He said normal like a gift. I watched my husband nod with folded hands. Kara called me for a short statement. My knees shook. My voice did not. I told the judge what I heard the night he forgot to hang up. I said I wrote every word with times. I showed the hidden rule and the screenshots. I held up the deed copy and traced my real loop in the N. The judge leaned forward, eyes on the paper, not my face. That helped me breathe. By phone, the county recorder confirmed the flag on the deed. The pension rep explained the freeze and the digital profile made without my login. Kara entered the red-striped flash drive under seal and noted chain of custody. She read the neighbor's statement about the retirement seminar. The word protection felt heavier than it sounded. His lawyer tried to break my calm. He asked if I hated my husband. I said I loved the truth more than I feared a room. He asked if I was angry. I said yes, and anger didn't write my exhibits. He asked if I signed something in a rush. I said, please look at the loop. He asked if I set the rule and forgot. I said I don't hide letters from myself. The gallery went quiet the way rooms do when the wind shifts. The judge asked for the voicemail. The calm voice filled the court. We understand there's been an unexpected order. If Ms. Calder is present, we recommend she be included." The last word hung. His lawyer smiled less. Victor filed a short affidavit, tracing attempts to redirect my pension and the emails about offshore. He didn't accuse. He pointed. The judge read longer than I could stand, then looked at us. She folded her hands. The temporary restraints remain. No transfers, withdrawals, or new debt tied to marital assets. Pension frozen to protect both parties. A forensic examiner will review signatures and logs. Counsel to meet on a discovery schedule. Reconvene in 3 weeks. No gavel. Just wait. Relief came like cool water and left like a tide. Kara touched my elbow. Leah whispered, "You did it." I nodded and kept breathing. In the hall, my husband stepped close enough for me to see the tiny scar at his jaw. He whispered, "You're blowing up your own life." I said nothing. He smiled a stage smile. "Take the offer, and this ends nice." Kara moved between us. "Through counsel," she said. We walked to the elevator. My phone buzzed. The subject line read, "Confidential proposal for peaceful resolution." I opened the email and stared at the number that tried to price my silence. I read the offer twice and felt nothing until my hands started to shake. It promised a clean split, a cash sum, and a mutual non-disparagement clause. It asked me to waive claims on the house, the pension, and future earnings. It called secrecy a kindness. It called speed a gift. It called me she again. I forwarded it to Kara and Leah. We met on video at my kitchen table. Kara spoke first. "This is a hush payment dressed as mercy. They want you off the board." Leah added, "Sign this, and the shape of the truth vanishes." I looked at the vase of flowers on the counter. They were starting to wilt at the edges. I made tea and sat with the weight. The money would end the noise. It would stop the stares at church. It would make the neighbors nod and say, "They worked it out." I could be quiet and tired and done. My shoulders slumped under the pull. Then I looked at my binder. Paper lined up like a backbone. I remembered Kentucky mornings when we split one egg and called it breakfast so we could pay rent. I remembered telling him my social the first time we did taxes together. I remembered how proud I felt when we paid off the used car. I remembered the night he said, "Once the transfer clears, the rest is clean."
The rest was me.
I told Kara. No, she asked me to say it again out loud. I did. We drafted a reply. Formal, calm, simple. "We will proceed in open court." I hit send and felt a door close and a window open at the same time. He came home with takeout and talked about the weather, then said, "Did you see the proposal?" I said yes. He waited. I said, "Discovery will show what it shows." His jaw worked. "You want to fight," he said. "I want a record," I said. He walked away, laughing without sound. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in the dark thinking about women who never see the rule hiding their letters, who sign because they are tired, who wake up in rooms where their names are paper thin. I thought about the nursing home where my grandma spent her last year, the women there who held onto photos like anchors. Morning came cold and bright. Kara texted. "They filed a motion to seal. We will oppose." Leah wrote, "Today we build the reveal." I put on a plain sweater, tied my hair back, and opened the binder to the tab that said silent reveal. I traced the word with my finger until the skin warmed. He left early with a suit bag over his shoulder. The house felt like a held breath. My phone buzzed with a calendar alert. Hearing moved up. We had been given a bigger room. I grabbed my tote and the binder and locked the door. As I reached the car, my phone lit with a new email from a name I didn't know. The subject line read, "Regarding the Ohio key." The first sentence made my knees go weak. "I have the inventory for Unit 317. I sat in the driver's seat and read the message twice. A storage facility manager in Columbus thanked Mr. C for settling a balance and attached an inventory list for Unit 317. The list held words that made my hands go cold. Documents, file boxes, 2 sealed safes, framed photos, a fireproof bag, and miscellaneous household items. My name wasn't on the lease. My life was. I forwarded the email to Kara and Leah and drove to court with the brass key heavy in my pocket. Kara read the inventory and exhaled. "This is the room behind the room," she said. "We'll handle the lawful path after the hearing.
Don't speak about it yet.
Today is about the reveal." The courtroom was larger than last time, rows of benches behind us. He sat with two lawyers now. The woman with the bright laugh from the phone call took a seat in the back row. When I saw her face, my stomach twisted and then settled into something iron. I looked away and kept my hand on the binder as if it had a pulse. Kara opened with the pattern. "Your Honor, we will show a string of acts, a forged deed filed when my client was in Kentucky caring for family, a hidden email rule that captured pension notices, a draft divorce with a false signature, and a settlement letter misnaming my client and asking for silence. We will then show attempted redirection of a retirement plan and communications regarding offshore transfers." She laid exhibits in a line, each labeled and dated. The judge watched in stillness. The clerk projected the screenshots. The room saw my signature and the broken loop. The room saw the email rule named newsletters. The room heard the voicemail about including me. The room read the draft calling me by my maiden name, the wrong street number, the word generous used like perfume. Victor stepped up with his chart. He traced transactions, attempted pulls, pending transfers. He showed that my expected pension payments were targeted into an account under my husband's control. He spoke in a tone that made math sound like daylight. His lawyer tried to spin it all as normal confusion, overcooked by an anxious wife. He said mistake so many times the word lost edges. Then Kara asked for the flash drive to be opened under the examiner's eye. Inside were PDFs of draft letters, scanned IDs, and a spreadsheet titled Post-DIV Plan. The columns sang dates, amounts, close out, liquidate, move after Friday. The judge's face stayed calm, but the silence in the room changed. People shifted and then stopped moving. I felt my own heart in my throat. Kara didn't gloat. She stacked proof and stood back. Then she called me, not for pain but for clarity. "Rena, when you saw your name on the deed, what did you do?" "I checked my calendar," I said. "I was in Kentucky with my aunt." "When you noticed the email rule?" "I saved every notice and printed the folder." "When you heard the voicemail?" "I wrote the time and saved the file." My words were small bricks. Together they made a wall. The judge looked at my husband. "Do you have any explanation for the signature variance?" He shrugged and said, "She signs fast sometimes." The judge asked, "And the email rule?" He said, "I set up filters to keep her inbox clean." The judge asked, "And this spreadsheet?" He said, "Planning is not a crime." Kara closed her binder and said, "We ask that all restraints remain, that the pensions stay under court protection, and that counsel for the respondent consider withdrawal if they cannot control further concealment." The room went still again. His female lawyer leaned in and whispered to him, then stood and asked to approach. They conferred, voices too low to hear, faces pale under polite smiles. The judge granted our requests. Assets remain frozen. Forensic review to continue. Parties are ordered not to destroy or move documents. Any violation will bring sanctions. Her tone made the word sanctions feel like a door slam. As we packed our things, his lawyers asked for a brief recess. The woman from the back row slipped out. He stared at the table and did not look up. We stepped into the hall, and I let the cold air hit my cheeks. My phone buzzed. His counsel had filed a notice. They were withdrawing from the case. The hallway felt wider when their notice hit the docket. People moved past us with the hush that follows a hard truth. Kara kept her voice even. "This is what happens when paper doesn't blink," she said. Leah grinned through the screen. I felt a strange, clean sadness, like the air after a storm clears and the porch is wet and quiet. He walked out alone, phone pressed to his ear. No stage smile now. The mask had slipped and cracked. He passed by, without looking at me. For a moment I saw the boy on our old couch in Kentucky, eating noodles from a pot, promising he had a system. Grief and anger braided in my chest, and then let go. At home, I made soup and called my grandma's friend from the nursing home to check on her. We talked about small things, the TV in the lobby, the way winter light sits on the windows. My world felt small on purpose. The kids argued about a science project and laughed when the dog stole a sock. The house sounded like life again. Kara filed notices to secure records from the storage facility, the bank, and the county. Victor traced the last open threads. The judge set our next date. Neighbors stopped waving at him and started waving at me. A few said, "I didn't know." I believed them and also didn't. Both felt true.
He sent a short email that night.
No apology. Just a line saying he needed time. I didn't answer. I cleaned the kitchen slow and set out the next day's folders like a teacher laying out a lesson. Calm as a tool. Paper talks. Sleep came like a soft door closing. Morning brought an empty driveway. His car was gone. His side of the closet looked like a hotel room after checkout. On the nightstand sat a folded note with my name in his neat block letters. I didn't touch it right away. I walked the house once, touching door frames the way people count beads. Then I opened the note. It held one sentence that felt like a dare and a goodbye. "You win." My hand steadied. Winning wasn't the word. I set the note under a magnet on the fridge and poured coffee. A small bird hit the kitchen window, shook itself, and flew away. I drove to the storage facility with Kara's letter and the court order in my tote, the brass key warm in my palm. The manager checked the file and confirmed the hold. "We need the marshal for entry," he said. I nodded. "We'll wait." He pointed down a long hall of metal doors and flickering lights. Unit 317 sat halfway down, quiet as a secret. Back at home, the mailbox held an envelope from the pension plan with my name spelled right. I opened it at the counter. The letter confirmed my access had been restored and asked me to set a new password. I exhaled and looked at the clock. In 2 days, we would open a metal door in Ohio and face whatever waited on the other side. 2 days later, I stood in the cold hall of the Columbus storage facility with Kara, a marshal, and my tote. The metal door to Unit 317 rolled up with a hollow rattle. The air inside smelled like paper and dust. Rows of file boxes lined the left wall. A fireproof bag sat on a shelf. 2 small safes rested on the floor. A framed photo faced the wall like a person in timeout. We cataloged everything before we touched it. The marshal logged each box and took photos. Kara read labels under her breath. Taxes, pension, titles, home. My fingers shook. The key turned the first safe. Inside were passports, birth certificates, and a letter written in his tight hand titled Plan. The first line made my throat close. "Once the transfer clears, the rest is clean." I handed it to Kara and kept moving. The second safe held a stack of envelopes with bank logos and a flash drive twin to the red-striped one. We sealed it for the examiner. In a blue folder, I found my name spelled wrong on 3 different forms. The forms were copies of things I never saw yet was meant to have agreed to. I thought about every night I packed lunches while he drafted a life without me. I felt a wave of pity for the person who believes love means nobody looks at the paperwork. On a shelf, the framed photo faced out now. It was our wedding picture. He had drawn a faint pencil line where my shoulder met his suit. The line stopped at his jaw, like a map of what he planned to erase. I wanted to cry and didn't. Tears were not the tool here. The tool was the log we were building with every item we named. We packed and sealed, signed and loaded. Outside, breath fogged in the air. Kara said, "This closes the loop." I nodded. The loop in the end. The loop in the plan. The loop in a life that would not hold me by silence anymore. Back in Indianapolis, the house felt new in an old way. I put the kids' drawings on the fridge in the spaces where bills used to hang. I called the pension plan and set my password while they ate cereal and told me jokes. I walked the yard and picked up fallen branches. Normal things looked like gifts. At the hearing, Kara laid out the storage inventory with dates and photos. The judge's face didn't move much, but her eyes stayed on the word plan. She kept the restraints in place and set a path for division that did not erase me. The courtroom felt like a place where I could breathe without counting. After the order, he stood in the hall alone. He looked smaller than I remembered, like a suit on a hanger without a body to fill it. He opened his mouth, then closed it and walked away. No speech. No promise. Just steps fading down a corridor. Weeks later, the settlement came on our terms. I kept the house, my pension, my name. He signed without a smile. There was no victory dance. Just a pen on paper and a door opening to a quiet morning. I drove to the nursing home with a box of soft blankets and a folder of easy legal guides I made on my laptop. Large type, plain words, checklists for wills and powers of attorney. I sat with women who held photo frames the way people hold steering wheels in a storm. I told them to write their loops the way they want them to close. At home, I took down the wedding photo and put up a picture the kids took of me on the porch, hair in a messy bun, coffee mug in hand, laughing at nothing. The light in the photo touched the edge of my cheek like a small promise. I hung it in the hallway, where the glass could catch the morning sun. I made a habit of quiet. I kept a file labeled Today where I wrote one true thing every night. Some days the truth was small as a seed. I changed the oil. I planted basil. I slept. Some days the truth was big enough to fill a page. I did not explain myself to someone who wished me small. One afternoon the mailman brought a final envelope from the court. Inside was a stamped copy of the order that closed the case. I held the paper up to the window and watched sunlight glow through the seal. My phone buzzed with a message from Leah. A heart, a gavel, a coffee cup. Kara sent a period and a smile. Victor sent a simple onward. I walked to the hallway and touched the frame of the new photo. The glass was cool and clean. The house made that soft click it makes when the air changes, the same sound from the night the phone stayed open, and my life did too. I thought about the girl in Kentucky who signed things because love said not to worry. I thought about the woman in Indiana who wrote things down because love of the truth said worry is a tool. On my desk sat the brass key. I set it in the kitchen drawer with the spare batteries and the tape, not because I needed it now, but because I wanted to remember the door it opened and the woman who chose to walk through it without raising her voice. Quiet justice is not silence. It is a record that stands when the stage lights go out. I brewed coffee and stepped onto the porch. The street was still. A kid rode a bike with streamers that snapped in the wind. Somewhere a dog barked twice. I sipped and watched the light land on the yard. The past did not vanish. It took its seat and folded its hands. The future waited like a blank page. I picked up my pen and wrote my name the way it is spelled, loop closed, line steady, mine.